and welcome to At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us. And yesterday, President Barack Obama said, "We are not at war with Islam. We are at war with those who have perverted Islam." And then today, Thursday, as you're watching this on Thursday, he also said, "To say we are at war with Islam is a lie." He's at a summit of leaders trying to decide how to handle the current ISIS crisis. And it's appropriate that we discuss the religion of Islam in the situation in the Middle East with the leader of the Islam faith here in Central Illinois. He is Imam Kamil Mufti, and he is the with the Islamic Foundation of Peoria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Before we talk about the religion itself, we need to address the situation with ISIS. And we sometimes, I think, we have a tendency to say in our private conversations, and even sometimes on air, we have a tendency to say Islamic terrorists or some phrase similar to that. But we never hear anybody say Christian terrorists or Judaic terrorists or Hindu terrorists. Why is it that we're doing that here in America?
That's an excellent observation and a very good question. Sadly, I'm not quite sure if I have the answer why we are doing this over here. What I will say will be more of a speculation. But the sad reality is that when there is a Muslim behind the gun, or a person behind the gun who happens to be of the Muslim faith, his faith becomes very important. And his faith becomes somehow mentioned and attached with his action, with his criminal activity. But when there is a Muslim who is a victim in front of the gun, the faith usually does not matter. It's just a victim. And we see this, what happened in Chapel Hill, where 3 innocent Muslim young students with great services to the humanitarian cause, feeding the homeless, serving the refugees, when they were shot. And the coverage did not really do justice to them. They were more or less victims. And the person behind the gun, his lack of faith, in this case not faith, but his lack of faith, he was a self-proclaimed atheist, was not really mentioned, even though there has been a lot of hate rhetoric coming from some of the atheists quite recently, where they have said that Islam is the enemy, and we are at war with Islam, they are violent, they threaten us, kill them all, by some of the famous names in the atheist circle.
So the leaders, and al-Baghdadi is the leader of ISIS,
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
or ISIL as the president will refer to them. They say they're doing this out of religious reasons. Do you take that to be true?
That's absolutely false. That is absolutely false. The claim that the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS or ISIL, they are both synonymous. It's a false claim. As a matter of fact, they are not even referred to with this name by the rest of the Arabs, all the Arab nations. They refer to them as Daesh. And that is the name which Kerry used to refer to them recently as well. Because the name is actually quite insulting and very misleading. Al-Azhar, which is the equivalent of the Vatican, a very rough equivalent of the Vatican for the Muslim world, they came out and they said that it's a very bad idea to refer to them as the Islamic State because it sends the completely wrong message to people. And comparing them or associating the I in their name, the Islamic, with them to somehow represent or reflect Islam is as true as the Ku Klux Klan by wearing the cross were representative of Christianity. Or Joseph Kony's Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA, working in Africa, is representative of the work of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. Obviously, these parallels, I'm just drawing these parallels to highlight the fact that the I in that name should not mislead us. This is what they are claiming. It's not true. It's a false claim. And it's a false claim according to the majority, mainstream other Muslims who have spoken very clearly. I myself wrote a letter last year, and we shared it with our friends and community leaders, religious leaders of different faiths, where I documented and I mentioned Muslim religious leaders, both in the United States as well as the Muslim international community, like the General Secretary of OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries, consists of 57 countries, the equivalent of United Nations for the Muslim world, spoke against them at the Vatican, at the highest level. The Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, the most conservative Muslim country right now that we have, the highest religious authority of Jordan and Turkey, just to name a few, they have clearly distanced themselves and said these people do not represent Islam. Al-Azhar, the highest seat of Sunni learning, and of course the Shias as well. They have said the same thing, like Grandullah Sistani, the highest religious authority among the Shias who resides in Iraq. They have all spoken against it, and they have distanced themselves and clarified this, just like mainstream Christianity has done in the case of, for example, the Mexican cartels. We talked about that previously. The Mexican cartels is a very good comparison between it's even offensive to use a Christian group. A group which has committed similar atrocities, 16,000 killings last year, 60,000 in about 6 or 7 years, 57 journalists that they killed, thousands of Mexican women sold into sex slavery. They make graphic videos and they post them on the social media. So a lot of the things which we, decapitating people, removing their heads from their bodies, so a lot of these things which we associate with ISIL, the Mexican cartels have done, including the 40+ students who were killed recently in Mexico as well, and their bodies were found. Now a lot of people will say that these people are doing it for drugs, for the sake of profit. ISIL is doing it for the sake of ideology. That's not entirely true. The Catholic Church came out and denounced their worship because these people get their, for lack of better word, their inspiration from the Catholic Church, where they build churches, they build mausoleums for their religious, cartel leaders. They distribute the Bible. One of their leaders actually even wrote a collection of his favorite verses from the Bible, which is freely distributed. And they worship the saint of death. And the Catholic Church distanced themselves and clarified that they do not represent Catholic teachings. So now even this connection in the minds of a lot of people does not exist, that these cartels have anything to do with religion. But all of these parallels point to us that religion can be abused and is being abused by different groups for their own purposes.
I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I get the sense that you feel that maybe Americans in general may not have a complete enough view of ISIS versus Islam versus any of those disputes based upon maybe either viewing only one source or not complete enough sources from we, the media.
Sure. I mean, obviously if a person limits themselves to one source, one news outlet, they will be influenced by their worldview. That's very true. So obviously if a person is getting their news from investigative reporters, for instance, or from British sources and Japanese sources and Russian sources, as well as American local sources or public television and public radio, they'll have a different view of things, because obviously we know that all news is not unbiased. There is a bias in the news. That's the reason why we have several organizations which report on the bias in the media and the fair reporting practices of different media outlets. And it's well known among the circle of journalists.
So you're recommending that people broaden their scope of knowledge through watching various television, reading various newspapers, et cetera?
Absolutely. I mean, the best shot we have from, based on my limited knowledge, at finding the truth is to go with investigative reporters. They are the ones who do all the digging. That's what they specialize in. And short of that, diversifying the sources of our news and getting them from different sources like RT, like Al Jazeera Plus, BBC Independent, The Guardian, Japan News, and of course NPR and other local media outlets. I think a person will get different perspective, and we don't have to follow all of them. What I suggest people can do is rotate them. So follow a few at a time. Yes, sample them.
So that brings us to the discussion of what is Islam. I mean, I think I'm safe in saying that many Americans, and this may include me, that I don't have a very good knowledge of, I was raised a Christian, but this is the Quran, so I think we're familiar at least with the book,
Sure.
not with what's in it. But can you give us a primer on the origins of Islam?
Islam is a very simple faith. There are about 1.6 billion Muslims divided in 56 Muslim majority countries, and as a minority in almost every other country in the world. It started, the Islam that we practice, that when we call Islam, with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in 7th century Arabia. But the real beginnings of Islam, according to Muslim theology, actually go before that. So Muslims consider that Adam, the mainstream Muslims consider that Adam was the first human being. They believe in the traditional story of the Bible of the creation of the first human being and the fall of Adam. Obviously, there are some important differences between the story of the fall as it is depicted in the Bible and as it is depicted in the Quran. It's in the beginning surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow, followed by other prophets of God, like Noah, like Abraham, a central figure in Islam, a central figure in the Quran.
So you have the same basis as the Christian faith?
Very close and very similar. There are a lot of similarities between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. So I would say that Islam is actually an extension and a completion at a theological level of Judaism and Christianity. That's how Muslims view Islam, as a completion and a continuation of the same message. Now, of course, Judaism would look at it. Even different Jews would look at that message in a different way. Christians would look at that message in a different way. They would say that the world was being prepared for the appearance of the Son of God. The way Muslims look at the tradition of the prophets, starting from Adam, including Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Aaron, and a lot of the biblical prophets like John the Baptist and others, ending with Muhammad, the Arabian prophet, they would say that they all represent the same message, the message to worship one God and to believe and follow his prophets.
But Muhammad was a prophet, whereas Jesus is considered the Son of God.
In mainstream Christianity, yes, Jesus is, but there are other sects of Christianity which have a different view of Jesus as well, especially in early Christianity. But Muhammad, peace be upon him, is considered a prophet like the biblical prophets before him, like Abraham, like Moses and others. That's how he's viewed. He's not considered as a God. He's not considered as the Son of God. He's not considered to possess any special divine qualities at all. He was a human being, and that's how Muslims believe in him.
We've discussed a little difference between Jesus and Muhammad. Can we discuss the difference between the origins of the Quran and the origins of the Bible?
Sure. There are some important differences. The Bible, you see, when we talk about the Bible, we are talking about primarily the Old Testament. We are talking about the New Testament. To the Christians, there is an Old Testament, but to the Jews, there is no Old Testament. There is only the Torah, and there is the books of the kings and the other books of the prophets. That's what constitutes what the Christian world would call the Old Testament. And then we have the New Testament, which again, there is a difference between the Catholic and the Protestant Bible. There are a different number of books in there. But taken all those books together, it constitutes the Bible. The Quran, on the other hand, is a more uniform text. The way it was revealed was different. Prophet Gabriel, Angel Gabriel is the one who is believed to have brought revelation from God to Prophet Muhammad, who could neither read nor write, but he would recite the message which he received from God through the angel Gabriel to his companions. And they memorized it, and Arabs had this tradition of memorization, and we actually have inherited, this is our legacy of memorization, till today, where the Quran in its entirety, in its original language in Arabic, is memorized. And it was written down by scribes in his lifetime as well. So it was not a text which was canonized, unlike the Bible, after his death. And when he passed away, the political leadership of Muslims like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, they are the ones who collected and codified the text into one book, which was left in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad. This is very briefly the origin of the Quran. In length, it is similar to the Old Testament. The language differs. It's considered to be a literary miracle. The Bible generally is not considered a literary miracle, primarily because it does not exist in the original languages. The Quran does. It is spoken, and the Quran is meant to be recited and enjoyed in the Arabic language. The word means the recitation. So while it is a book, and it is a book which has been translated, the true power and the true majesty of the Quran lies in its as a spoken word, as a recital.
As I previously mentioned, the Quran, I think most Christians or most Americans are familiar with the book, not necessarily with the reading of the book, but They may also, I mean, the year 622 might be familiar with them. Two cities in Arabia, for instance, are very familiar. But can you explain to me the Hajj and the difference between Medina and how's that all work?
Okay, well, in modern Saudi Arabia, there are two cities. There is Mecca and there is Medina. Mecca is the city where Prophet Muhammad was born, some 1400 plus years ago. Very close to where the Black Cube sits today. This is considered to be the holiest place in Islam. The Black Cube, the Kaaba.
Okay.
I'm referring to it as a cube in case somebody doesn't know. It's known as the Kaaba. He was born over there. And when his initial message was very simple, it was a message of worshiping one God and equality between people, and justice and fairness between people. It was a social message. It was a message which was addressed to the slaves as well as the women, and so a message of social equality and economic equality between different classes. It didn't sit very well with the power structure at that time, including the message to give up their idols and to worship the one God, the God of Abraham. As a result,
I'm sorry for interrupting, but giving up idols, it sounds oh so familiar.
Yes. He was persecuted in the city of Mecca, and he was forced to leave that city with his close companion Abu Bakr, and he migrated. He fled to Medina, which at that time was an agricultural society, whereas Mecca used to be a merchant center, known more for its business and trade. The people of Medina gave him sanctuary. They gave him protection, and it is over here that he established the mosque. And it is in this mosque, in the side of this mosque, is where he was buried. And we still have his grave, which is marked over there under the green tomb. When he came and settled in Medina, the pagan Arabs who lived in Mecca, the Quraysh, his own tribe, they were not very happy. So within the first few years, they attacked Medina, and they were repelled. They were not able to destroy Medina. They came back the next year, and they came back after another few years. And eventually, by this time, the Muslims in Medina, they had become quite strong, even though they were able to repel these military attacks which were forced on them. They were all defensive wars. And in the end, they were able to sign a truce. The Prophet was always a man who went on the side of peace wherever he could. Peace was preferable over war. And that's what he chose. He chose to sign a peace treaty in Hudaybiyah with the pagans of Quraysh. And this is when the greatest expansion of Islam took place, during the times of peace, where he was able to propagate and show the peaceful, true teachings of this faith to other people. And that this message is an extension of the message of earlier prophets. The message being very simple: worship the one true God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, serve him in your life, believe and follow the prophets, and serve humanity. This was the essence of his message.
There's a pilgrimage that takes place.
Yes.
Can you explain the pilgrimage? And while we're at it, there are 5 pillars of practice in the Islamic faith?
Yes.
And that's one of them, the pilgrimage.
Yes. So the Islamic belief, there are 6 articles. There is belief in God, a God of compassion, a God of mercy, and also a God of judgment, who sends down his revelations through the angels. That's the second article of faith. The third being prophets. There are certain individuals God chooses to deliver his message to people. This is God's way of communicating his message. Instead of talking to individual people, he gives his message through the prophets. So that's the third article of faith. The fourth is that some prophets were given scriptures or heavenly books, like the Torah, which was given to Moses, or the Gospel, which was given to Jesus, or the Quran, which was given to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. The fifth article of faith is that there is a last day. After this life ends, there is another life to come, and our behavior in this life will determine where we go after death and how we will be judged after death. And the last is destiny, which is a source of great comfort to a believer, to a person who believes that God is in charge and everything is happening according to his plan. These are the articles of belief, things we believe in. There are 5 articles of Islamic practice. The first is testimony, to testify that only God is the one who deserves worship. God should be the greatest influence in my life. And I should model my life and live my life in belief and in harmony with the teachings of the prophets of God. The second is prayer, to connect with God, to actually talk and communicate to God and to beseech God for one's needs. Third is fasting, which is done in the month of Ramadan, a month of sharing, a month of giving, and a month of intense spiritual devotion. The fourth is charity. It's not just worship, but it's also about social equality and taking care of those who may have less than us. So that's the fourth pillar of Islamic practice. And the fifth is the Hajj or the pilgrimage. Malcolm X, who was part of the civil rights movement along with MLK, his life was transformed when he went to the Hajj pilgrimage in the 60s. And he wrote about his experiences in his autobiography with Alex Haley. The book is called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And in there he talks about the racial sense of equality which he saw, where the darkest of the dark and the whitest of the white prayed and ate their food together, shared their meals together, something which in segregated America of that time he had never experienced. And that's what greatly moved him. So it is a very intense spiritual experience. There are some 2 to 3 million people every year who perform it. And the idea over there is to remove those racial barriers, those economic barriers. Everybody is dressed in the same clothes, and to bring mankind at an equal footing in front of their Creator. So all these false gods which we have created, they're removed. And people can feel this sense of equality in front of their Creator.
You mentioned the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yes.
Are there some books that you might recommend for those of us who are not, and in addition to the Quran, of course?
Here is a small book which I brought. It's the sayings of Muhammad, compiled by Sir Abdullah Suhrawardi, with a foreword by Gandhi. This was a book which Leo Tolstoy, the famous Russian writer and novelist, had in his pocket when he walked out into the wilderness and never came back. So this was a book which he was reading, and it was recommended to him by Gandhi. And Gandhi writes in the foreword of this book, it contains the sayings of Prophet Muhammad on different chapters. I have read Sir Abdullah Suhrawardi's collections of the sayings of the Prophet with much interest and profit. They are among the treasures of mankind, not merely Muslims. So I think this is a good book to read. Another book which I think is quite useful, and there are so many out there, it's called Islam the Alternative by Murad Hoffman. Murad Hoffman was a German diplomat. He's still alive. He served in the NATO. He has a PhD in law from Munich University. And he has also served as the ambassador on behalf of Germany in many different countries. And he became a Muslim some years ago. So I was quite enthralled by what made him change his mind. So this is a book, he has written several books. I have almost all of them. And this is one of the books which he has written, and I would suggest this book as well, Islam the Alternative.
Islam the Alternative.
Yes.
Murad Hoffman,
Yes.
Hofmann.
Yes.
You've mentioned peace quite often in the conversation. It must be disheartening to see what's happening in the Middle East with a peaceful religion like Islam and ISIS taking the name and doing the atrocities that they're performing. How does that sit with you? I mean, inside, how does that make you feel?
Maybe frustrated that a religion of peace and a religion of love and compassion is associated with such unbelievable brutality and savagery that it requires an explanation just to say that that's not what Islam is. And when even famous people like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Dr. Oz, other well-known people, when they have also spoken and said that these people and their atrocities do not represent Islam, they have nothing to do with Islam. So, I mean, one parallel I can give of what these people are doing, or how maybe viewers or listeners can think of it, is just like somebody sitting outside of America cannot judge America based on people who break the law and are imprisoned and found guilty. For example, rapists, serial killers, child molesters. We cannot say America is a country of child molesters or America is a country of rapists. It's an unfair statement based on the crimes which are committed in the country. It's unfair to judge a religion by the people who break and violate its teachings instead of uphold them.
So don't judge a religion by those who break its tenets.
Absolutely.
Well, we certainly have a lot of information that you've provided us so that we better understand the religion of Islam and the situation that exists in the Middle East. Imam Kamil Mufti, thank you so much for joining us on At Issue. I appreciate the insight.
Thank you very much for inviting me and having me over. I appreciate it.
And we'll be back next week with another edition of At Issue. This time, we're going to be talking with the project manager of the new CAT Global Headquarters. Those global headquarters have been announced, and we're going to talk for a full half hour about the details of the new Caterpillar Global Headquarters. Next time on At Issue, please join us then.